All right, we are back with John Lewis, CEO of Reset Enterprises, to break down one of the key products and services that Reset offers as a way of changing and making impact in communities. So, hey, John.
Hey, Erika, how are you?
Great. Welcome back. We're really excited to kind of dive into your brain a little bit and get some of your thought leadership around how change is made in communities and how we can crowdsource innovation and crowdsource just creativity.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things is I was re-looking at how I wanted to move in my next iteration of investments in business is how could I take and synergize these areas of activism, community-based development, and also kind of social community and publishing. How could I mesh all those things together in terms of, creating a space for individuals to be their best selves, and to tap in to their creativity. Maya Angelou, who I had an opportunity to meet, said one of our most abundant resources that we have is creativity. So how do we harness that? And I wanted to get rid of this top-down strategy of planning and impacting communities, where the community was not involved in the process. So how could we create where organizations, employees, and community members and stakeholders could be involved in the process of their own transformation, right? And how could that really be impactful? So what we did was kind of create an innovative way to create focus groups that really um, engages all community stakeholders in a very fun and design thinking way, but also give you impact data and recommendations and findings that creates a buy-in for all community stakeholders because everybody experienced the same experience all at the same time. And it creates a way where you can communicate that to investors, to organizations, to understand and how we can understand how to leverage our collective resources to really elevate communities from community out. I don't like saying from the bottom up. I like saying from the community up, right? Which is where planning should actually take place.
Yeah, that's the topic I want to dive in a little deeper to because this is so common. You have organizations or communities who really want to do good, right? Like they have good intentions and they want to help. And we see this all the time with, you know, Americans who go into other countries and try to like do some kind of service projects. And I think what we're learning as we stumble around on that a little bit is that when we try to make change on somebody else or to somebody else without actually getting their collaboration and contributions and buy-in, it doesn't really go over well. It doesn't work well. It's not sustainable. It doesn't last. And so the conflict then becomes, okay, so then how do you help, but how do you also empower the communities that you're trying to help at the same time? And that's why I think this idea jam concept is really, really powerful for people who are saying, you know, we want to put resources and energy into creating new structures that are beneficial, but you can't do that to somebody and on somebody. You have to do it with them.
I absolutely agree. We have this thing where we have this philosophy of a multi-collaborative organization. And we say 1+1 doesn't equal 2, 1+1 equals 3. And it's very interesting because if you take the circle of the Venn diagram and those circles come together, and in between that space, which is 3, meaning that that collaboration is the third part of that.
Mm.
The ideas and what people talk about within that area is what makes 3. And 3 is a very powerful number, in terms of, I think Nikola Tesla talked about, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, understand the frequency of 3, 6, and 9. So we really have to look at, in terms of our community and us being a B Corp, we look at it as a triple bottom line. That means that we are not only interested in making money for ourselves, but we're also interested in making money for and helping our customers, but also the community at large. So our products and services are directly inspired from that. And moreover, making change on someone is not what people want. What people want is to be engaged. They want to be asked. They have ideas and strategies. And I always tell folks, and I share with them as I'm speaking, is saying, hey, look, the ideas to solve the problems already exist within consciousness, in the consciousness of the community, which is the people have already thought about it, but nobody's ever asked them. or created a space or a methodology for them to shine within their most creative selves, right? And we are cultural creatives, but we don't tap into that energy enough. That's kind of beaten out of us. Or we feel very disenfranchised as a community because somebody's always trying to make change, like you said, on us or to us, but not including that with us. And in order to get complete buy-in and from a community, and for any plan or any new idea to really stick or to really have its impact, it has to be done with the community and in partnership and in collaboration with the community. I think about Greg Braden. He talks about like social Darwinism and how that is not necessarily how we should be thinking about things, and we talk about social Darwinism being survival of the fittest, this whole idea of competition. But if we look at nature, and if we look at ecosystems, he said that we all really, nature is about uh, collaboration and cooperation and synergy. And that is what allows ecosystems to thrive and to build. So the idea jam is we create we bring the parts of the ecosystem together, and they're allowed to collaborate within that space. And the process creates a culture fun, of synergy, and also ideation, which is incredibly empowering to communities. But it's not only this one experience, because we understand that ecosystems have to sustain themselves, right? So what we do is we take these ideas and these strategies and we find in these findings and we present it back to the community stakeholders in a way where they can deconstruct the problems and see themselves in it and understand where the resources and where the energies need to be put within these areas that we identify that might be problems to begin to create the impact that communities begin to see. And it's very effective, very impactful. And I think that when I was growing up in my church, I saw this happen, right? I saw that, all these energies and creativity was being brought to bear uh, under this idea of faith and love for one's community and oneself. And how do we want to impact that? And everybody brought their gifts and talents, which I see as super, important. I think about W.E.B. Du Bois. He always talked about the talented 10th. And I like that philosophy, but I kind of disagree with it because it's still a hierarchy of thinking that there's 10% of people that we want to, what we would say, like you said, make change on or make change to. I look at it from taking your talent of your 10% of your gifts that you have and work collectively with each other in the community to actually create the change that you seek. So we're talking about the talented 10% of our creativity, which is obviously more than that, working in synergy to solve the collective problems or to move community forward, to evolve ourselves and to evolve and elevate communities as a whole. That's the whole principle and philosophy behind the Idea Jam.
That's beautiful. So the way that it's typically done, if you're trying to engage a community, typically you either survey members of the community to get their feedback, or maybe you do a focus group. Or the other side of that, which I've seen, is you make a small group of leaders who are representative of that community, and you kind of put the burden on them to figure it all out on behalf of the whole community. So how is this Idea Jam process kind of an innovation to those methods that are typically used?
Well, I think it's innovation because it's a curated process, but it's also innovative in terms of how we select cohorts of individuals to be in the room. We also create a set of questions. Um, there's also a kind of a design thinking piece. So you just can't focus in on the barriers. You actually have to focus in on solutions and ideas and strategies. Um, and it's innovative in the experience, of what we're trying to do. First of all, it's transparency. So everybody has a clear understanding of the problem, right? I don't think that everybody also rolls into a project or anything to having a clear understanding of what the problem is. And this is exactly what we have to begin to solve. Two, it's also about like bringing facilitators together because the innovation is that we're layering ideas and groups on ideas. So we have this set of problems, but then we have the cohorts who see that there's a set of problems, or the people who's leading the project. But then we also have the facilitators who then also begin to look at how that is. And they are part of the station designs and the Idea Jam experience. And then we have the community who actually comes in and then actually does that. So if you think about how powerful that is, just that process alone, that 3-step process is very impactful. And we break people up at each station in a round robin. So then therefore, we're not just doing this focus group that's boring. What we do is that we're guiding you through a process and a methodology that creates a lot of really great data. It gets you very clear on the problems, and we also get it from the different perspectives of the community. There's this thing about, like, in order to be a shaman, and shamans were very good, and people adopted them because they were able to leave their bodies and see everybody's perspective, which is why people came to talk to them or to get information from them. So if you look at the Idea Jam as a process, what it does is creates a process where you get the unique perspectives and data from all different types of cohorts and experiences. So therefore, you're getting a much deeper and a much richer understanding of the problem, but also you're getting this amazing repository of ideas, of strategies and recommendations and findings. And the other part of this that's so powerful is collective understanding.
Mm.
How hard is that when you come? It's this collective understanding of what it is. So then, therefore, you have then from at the end of the event, everybody's bought in because now they went through this process and have a collective understanding. And how hard is that in your larger trying to create decisions and make it? And that can't happen if you're making decisions on or decisions too. You have to do it in collaboration with the community. And the Idea Jam creates that collective understanding, but also that collective realization. Wow, and that's where the transformation begins. Because if everybody comes to the same realization, then therefore, or in terms of its parts, in terms of what needs to happen, then therefore what you have then is what you have community-based buy-in. And therefore that directs the investments, that directs the recommendations, that directs the findings. And that's when you have transformation. And what's been very powerful, we've ran these things, these Idea Jams in the community. And I just did a total of the numbers. So we've energized or directly impacted probably $1 million worth of funding. We've had over 350 people a part of the Idea Jam process. We've had over like 2,000 or 3,000 pieces of data and, hundreds of recommendations and findings. That's the power of the Idea Jam process.
And the buy-in just really resonates as I think about, the old models of surveying or focus groups. Like when you have somebody fill out a survey, you're not actually getting their buy-in. Like they're giving you one directional responses, but they're not really getting any feedback back from you. And so even if you compile all those survey results and come back with a recommendation, it's not a guarantee that people who submitted to the survey are even at all bought into that recommendation you came up with. So that's out. And then the flip side is when you take that group of who are supposed to be your token representation, right? And then they're the ones who come up with the solution. The hope is that, because they look like and represent the others in the community, everyone's just going to go along with what they think. But we have found that doesn't work either necessarily. Like you still don't have that full community buy-in. And so I feel like something that you do here with this model is fast track in true community buy-in.
Yeah, we fast track true community buy-in, which fast tracks innovation. It accelerates understanding, and it accelerates, what I feel like is transformation, or it accelerates the impact, right? And I think that that's what's very important. I love the fact that you talk about the surveys and the focus group. We had to get away from those non-traditional models for several reasons. But one is we're in the information age and things are happening at light speed or at reaction, right? So then therefore, how do we move through community-based problems at a more rapid pace and a rapid solution-oriented pace? The Idea Jams can be ran every week, or they can be ran every day in some way, shape, or form to get clarity and understanding and innovations and strategies and ideas to move things forward. And the companies that are able to innovate fastest and quickest, and communities going to be able to do that, are the communities that are going to sustain, they're going to thrive, and they're going to win. And we really need to focus in on that, right? In this particular age. And think about what's happening now, right? In the world and the economy, there's a lot of uncertainty, but there's also a lot of change. And we need quick adaptability. in this, and we need our leaders and communities to adapt collectively, right? That is what really needs to happen. And so in order to drive change, to drive impact, and to drive understanding and transformation, we need to have a process in place for our communities to be able to adapt very quickly, create collective understanding, and we need to innovate at the pace of scale. That's super important in order for us to have the impact that we need within communities, because change is happening so quickly. I think that we were talking about like the change that happened for our parents within 100 years, we're going to see in 100 years 1,000 times fold that just with technology. And we have to be able to keep up as communities. We have to keep up as companies and foundations and nonprofits and banks at the scale of change that's happening right now. And the Idea Jam is a great way and methodology for us to be able to do that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about an example of this. So how does it actually look? Like, is there a way that you've implemented an Idea Jam, maybe at a community level, or where there were some goals for a region or a community where you've seen this model really help?
Yeah, I think several of them. One, we did one with the healthcare industry, which I found was very interesting, in cooperation with Berkshire United Way. That was really cool because they were trying to get and understand how the big problem here is that in Berkshire County we have an aging population. We need folks to do healthcare work. It's a very tough job if you're doing a CNA or whatever, and also what they wanted to do was be able to say, how can we create career tracks out of that, right? So you're just not a CNA. You could be a CMA, or you can move to LPN or RN or any other healthcare industry, whether you want to be, physician's assistants or dental assistants. But there was no clear way of how to communicate that. We really brought those individuals together, which mean administrators, educators, actually students who were going through the courses, CNAs, and everybody in that field. And the interesting part, and I think this is one of the things that really came out of that, we found that none of these folks were communicating. So if I am a school who is educating future nurses and CNAs, is my curriculum actually keeping up with what's actually happening in real time in the actual field? We found that was a gap, right?
Mm.
So this networking event was a real clear opportunity for us, that because we had to map the journey of the industry and like really mapping that and getting everybody involved in what that looks like. We created a situation instantaneously where those organizations or individuals who had never been in the room communicating were able to connect. And it's that connection instantaneously where it started to build those relationships to be able to say, okay, I need to communicate with, a nursing home to know what the requirements are and how do I need to structure our education to actually fit those gaps. But also, it also talked about how can we use the stories of those individuals to create a marketing campaign that will get more people in the field, and also talk about what opportunities as it relates to a career track. And we were able to look at that from different perspectives, like from the administrator, from the teacher of the school, from the healthcare worker, and from the nonprofit agencies that were supporting this work, such as Berkshire United Way. And I thought that it was such a very powerful example of that. The other one that we just got through doing.
Can I ask a question about that real quick?
Yeah.
Because what I find remarkable is just, so all of that was accomplished in one event for the most
In
part. I
one
mean,
event.
obviously there was processing afterwards and reports and analysis, but basically the number of topics that you just mentioned that were addressed and discussed and ideated on, like that would have been 6 months worth of work and focus groups. And you were able to pull that together in one event.
That's why we think the Idea Jam is exactly. That's why we think the Idea Jam is so powerful. It's because it's efficient
Mhm.
and it's less cost effective, right? It's cost effective. So anybody who wants an Idea Jam and wants to be able to get this data, it happens so much quicker, and the impact is at an accelerated pace. So what we created something in 2 hours that, like you said, would take 6 months.
easily. I mean, to get all those people's feedback and on all of those different topics.
And what also empowered that is that we were able to do a report that all the stakeholders got, they could review and they could refer to that, the findings and the recommendations at any time as a reference guide for their organization as well. And I think that that's like super impactful. And the other part of it is that if you want to hire, say, for consulting, you were able to actually create a marketing plan and campaign for that as well. So think about it. You got the report and you also got a campaign that was a solution to what you were doing. And that's very rare, right? Because some people only do like one part. We only do the research, but they don't necessarily create the connections or have the actual consulting in place to actually drive and help drive the change. Because people are busy, right? Organizations, they have enough to do. So if I have to incorporate and do something more, it probably won't get done. But if you went on the journey with us and we all gain this collective understanding, it's not hard for you to make the leap to say, okay, I want Team Reset to come in and actually help us move this forward. And I think that's the other powerful piece of what we offer.
And the barriers are so low at that point because so many people had bought in already from being a part of the process.
Yeah, and people are excited. You should get some of the testimonials. They're insane, because they're like, wow, this is great. I haven't really experienced anything like this before. It's unique. And the buy-in, like you said, is they already bought in. So it creates these lower barriers of entry for us, but also for themselves, right? Because everybody knows it's a problem. The problem is that how do we come to the understanding of solving it and feeling good about the solutions that we come up with as a group and a collective of different cohorts, looking at it from different perspectives? And the reason why they buy into it is because everybody's ideas and strategies from wherever vantage point they're coming from is reflected in the report.
Yes, it's heard, it's seen, it's validated.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody in the round robin piece has experienced it in some way, shape, or form. So think about it. You're not just in one group. We have multiple stations, and everybody has to experience every station and be a part of that. So you're getting rapid understanding in very, very quickly, right? And not only are you understanding the problem, but you're also being able to put solutions and think about it. So it puts the people who are going to be most impacted by what we're doing at the forefront of solving the problems in a fun way. And how many times have you talked to employees or people in the community or an organization and they feel like they have not been heard? They feel like they have ideas and ways to fix things, but because of a top-down strategy, they are not being listened to. And we found this out in an Adobe study. In an Adobe study of, I think, 2014, they talked about how people in organizations and companies felt less creative than ever because they were not being asked. But conversely, when they asked CEOs in this study also about what is the best skill they wanted their managers and employees to have, it was creativity. So think about the gap there, though, right? You want creativity, but in the organization, you're killing it.
Wow.
So the Idea Jam is a way for you to bring that into your organization in a way that is not pointing fingers. It's productive, it's positive, and it's actionable, right? It's actionable. You can say, wow, I can really take ownership into this.
So you get real results that move your company forward. And at the same time, you're doing employee engagement and employee retention, all of those things at the same time.
All at the same time. That's what makes this so such a powerful methodology and tool that we've done. And we've done 4 or 5 years, and we're even still learning, because after each Idea Jam, we do a retrospective. Like, what did we learn? What worked? What didn't work? So we're constantly improving the process because we want to make sure that we're constantly improving the experience of those who are a part of the Idea Jam, and that we're actually making the actual impact that we had said we want to. Because again, we believe the best impact comes from communities, comes from employees, comes from the people who are actually going to be affected by it. So again, it's this community out, community up, way of thinking. But we're finding that it's super innovative, and it's also bringing new ideas and new thinkings to the table that would have never gotten there before.
And so this also can apply for communities. And so I know there's an Idea Jam you have coming up. Can you share more about kind of what the premise is of that? What is the What's the group who's bringing you in, trying to accomplish, and what is, how are you planning to help with that?
Well, it's really cool. We're working with the Association of Black Business Professionals, but also a whole group. I call it the all-star team. We have, but the 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 project or what they're trying to solve at this juncture, because during COVID, we recognized a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
One of the things we recognized that racism was alive and well in this country, and the impact of anything has, whether it's a pandemic or anything. I heard somebody when white people catch a cold, black people get the flu, right? So
Yes.
it's so much more worse.
Yes.
So during COVID, we saw that Black businesses were highly impacted and affected. So everybody had this collective understanding and awakening, right? Um, but now it's like, what do you do? So how do we help Black business? How do we better help the Black community? One of the things we know is that if you help the Black community out economically, meaning that Black businesses are successful and that they are thriving, that we know that they are also folks who are going to donate and invest in the community. They're going to hire more Black folks. And there's also a certain value system that comes with that as well, right? So we want a strong Black community that's, that is thriving economically. One of the ways to do that, and what the project that we're taking on, along with ABBP, is how do we build an effective supply diversity ecosystem? When we say supply diversity, we mean how do we get Black businesses in the position to do more business with larger companies, contracts with larger companies, and that, because we know 2 or 3 year contracts with larger companies and corporations for Black business is a lifeblood because it creates cash flow.
Yeah.
Contract creates cash flow. Cash flow creates what? Ability for you to be able to leverage, get credit, hire more employees, buy new machines, grow your business. And if that's not happening in the Black community, then they're relegated to be on the margins of the economic spectrum. So what Western Mass Development Corporation, ABBP, have done is really try to work with anchor institutions, and now ABBP is working with Black businesses, and now we're trying to work together in terms of this project to say, okay, the full scope of this is how do we build a thriving supply diversity ecosystem to help Black businesses, thrive. And and then we're going to be dealing with all the cohorts, economic development corporations, banking, policymakers, BIPOC businesses will be there, think tanks, any Black organization that's serving Black business in the community, or also any organizations that are serving, like Minority Business Council or the SBA, all of those folks, and even community-based foundations. Because think about it, all communities to come together to solve this. And they're probably addressing this, right, in some parts, in some ways, but it's not been a collective opportunity for everybody to really put their heads together and really think through this. And I'm happy that Richard at ABP, Richard Griffin of Mass Development, and also Vice President at ABP, brought us in to actually do this, because I think this is going to be a great foundation to actually move this forward. And it's going to be a sea change, as people see, because what we just talked about, this collective understanding is going to happen. And then when we march the reports, we can put together a strategy document to say, here's how everybody needs to work together to actually make this happen, and how to make this ecosystem work more synergistically with each other in order for everybody to thrive. And it's very rare when you get Black ministers in the room, Black bankers, and everybody can all talk about and discuss the problem in a process that I think will really create a huge impact, and this understanding and transparency that I think that just doesn't happen.
The ecosystem is key, because I'm just imagining there may be one other time when those people, some of them might all get together. It's probably a conference of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But think about how the conferences work. Like, you're mostly sitting around listening to one person talk or listening to a panel. Maybe you're networking with each other, but it's more on like a one-on-one networking basis, right? So now you're putting them in this environment or this experience where they're going to be talking and creating with colleagues across different sectors of this ecosystem. And so through that process, I mean, you know how it is. It's one thing to have a conversation, a casual, like, get to know you conversation. It's a whole other level of connection when you're creating something, when you're collaborating, when you're working together on something. And so when you talk about ecosystem, I can just imagine the ecosystem that will be formed in this moment, in this event, that will then be able to continue even once this event ends.
Yeah, it's so important, and you're so right on the money. So think about the work that Also part of the innovation that the Idea Jam does that we have to do is to make sure that the ecosystem is in the room.
The right people have to be there.
The right people have to be there. And it starts with our marketing and how we communicate to the market about what we're doing and why it's important. And right now, we have successfully literally gotten everybody, a representative from every part of the ecosystem to be in that room and collective buy-in. And we have about 30, 35, 36 folks who are going to be attending. 20 of those are Black businesses. So how powerful is that going to be? Bay State's going to be there. Western Mass Development Corporation, Berkshire Bank, Revex Lab, Common Capital. So if businesses need to even communicate or network and connect with people who do creative financing for their business, they'll be able to meet in that room. The Vice President of Western Mass Community Foundation will be there. The Executive Director of E4All. There'll be a couple of City Council folks so we can talk about policy. I'm hoping we can have some of the Beckma folks there who are really into policy. So everybody will be there. That's like amazing. And they'll actually be able to go through this process. And so that was just 30 days of work, just getting those individuals to say yes to be in the room. And that is, and for Reset to say, okay, here's where we're understanding that this is the ecosystem. And we need to make sure that these folks are in the room. That is the biggest key. The other part of this that's really cool about the program that they set up is any of those Black businesses that come in the room are also eligible to apply for the Same Sky Project, that's what it's called, empowerment program. And they're going to have 15 folks go through that, and 10 of the top folks will be able to get $10,000 in grant funds for their business to help them further them along to be able to do business, with to apply those funds to help grow their business so they get further along as it relates to doing business or being what we call an ideal candidate to do business with these larger institutions. That's amazing. 2, we pay you $100 stipend just for your time. The other part of this that I love about the Same Sky Project is that they have a success coach from the Urban Leagues that's working with you. And what I also thought was cute is that the African Diaspora Mental Health Agency will be working with folks on mindset and how are they dealing with cultural biases with these businesses. And because a lot of business folks, we go through a lot of stuff, Black business folks, that we are not able to talk about, right? So think about how cool this wraparound program is. We deal with your ideas, your recommendations will be there, and now you have opportunity to go to this just amazing program that's kind of really fully thought out. And then last part, we're going to do a roundtable with the report when we produce it with all those community stakeholders, with the recommendations and the strategy document on how to move forward. That's what you call real opportunity for change. And that's what we're really excited about with the Same Sky Idea Jam Project, which is happening on June 2nd at the Springfield Innovation Center, June 2nd, which is next Thursday, Springfield Innovation Center from 5 to 8 p.m. So I'm encouraging everybody to come out.
And so if people hear this and they're thinking that they want a seat at that table, is it open to anybody to come, or is it by invitation, or how would that work?
Well, we have a list. I will say that we're kind of at capacity now, but I will say we'll put people on a wait list because sometimes people don't show up, so people can get in. But we've been just working the list. And so if they want to come and if they are interested in being there, I think they can just come for the networking piece, which would either be just amazing. And anybody of those individuals can attend. So we're definitely inviting you out to that. And I think what we'll do is put something at the bottom of the screen to say, here's where you go to actually apply and actually sign up. And we've been working this list and sending it out, and I'm sure you'll hear some more PR stuff. And but yeah, we invite anybody who wants to come that's interested in solving this problem to be a part of this, because it's going to take all community stakeholders to be a part of this and to really make the change we want to see.
And there'll be 2 opportunities for this jam itself, but then later for the report presentation and roundtable. I'm sure that will also happen.
Absolutely. And that's going to even have larger folks there, because we want to really make a big deal out of this, right? Because this is where the collective realization will also come, right? Because everybody bought in. They'll be at the roundtable, they'll be at the report, and they'll be at the unveiling of the report. But then we're also will discuss the recommendations, our findings, and what do we think are strategies, the best strategies moving forward.
Brilliant, brilliant. So as the designer of this event, what is it that you're really hoping, if you could just dream for a minute, what do you really hope comes out of this event on Thursday?
Well, I think what I would like to do is, of course, the networking and connections, because we want people to continue to communicate and work together. I think a collective understanding where the gaps are, right, and what education is needed for Black businesses, a clear understanding that there has to be a lot more investment for BIPOC businesses to be successful because they've been neglected for so long. You know, so but also I want to see those Black businesses there. I want to meet and greet and know who they are, right? Because they also inspire me. Because I feel like Black businesses are the true capitalists because we don't have money or credit usually. Sometimes I won't say that's all the time, but we make it work, and I call that true capitalism, right? Uh, so. So what would happen if they did get help? What would happen if they did get the resources? So I'm hoping that those networking and those connections continue to move forward past the event, and some of the strategies and ideas that come into play that are unveiled or revealed during that time, that people take it upon themselves to say, hey, how can I make this happen even before we do the report? That's what I hope. And that would be a success to us. The ultimate success would be in what we're also realizing, that there's a fully funded organization or funding for someone to work on this full time, to create this framework and foundation and infrastructure for supply to diversity programs for BIPOC businesses, because that would be the actual game changer, and that the city would buy into it. And in a real way that would allow true impact within the spiritual community and growth. Because we know once you do that, we're looking at areas like Atlanta, when they've adopted a very robust supply diversity and minority contracting programs, it completely transforms a city. And if we look at like racism and the barriers, I saw a report that if in fact racism didn't exist, Black people would have been able to contribute $16 trillion to the economy. So this is not about charity. This is about economic sea change. If you invest in Black folks, if you invest in Black business, then it has a net positive economic impact on a city. And that's how we should be looking at it.
So powerful. And last question I want to ask you is just, so in all of your experience now running these idea jams across different communities and different companies, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you've gained through this process?
I mean, for us, it's about, we're always learning new stuff, like the ideas and strategies. And we also, one of the biggest takeaways is people really care. And I think that we have a cynical scenario, right? Because we're looking from our own perspective. But I see that folks really actually care and they want to see change. They just maybe don't know how. I also see that they might have their own personal barriers that they have to go through, and that this process allows them to move through that. And I think the other biggest impact is that is like I said, the investment, but also the community connection and the community transformation that we see that happens. That's what we live for. And that's what at the end of the day, if there's an impact, if there's a change, if any of the ideas or recommendations have gotten instituted, then that's a win for us. And it's a win for the community.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So John Lewis from Reset Enterprises, CEO and also creator of this amazing process called the Idea Jam. If you'd like to check it out live, there's one coming up in Springfield, Massachusetts. You can get details below. And we hope to see you next time.
I got one more shout out. I need to shout out my business partner, Devin Shea, who is our Chief Innovation Officer. I would not have been able to do a lot of this stuff without him. He's been a part of driving this innovation forward, along with myself, and also Patrick Danahy, which has made this product what it is. And I want to give a shout out to the team that's going to be coming down to do the Idea Jam. We got a powerhouse full of folks, including you, Erika. We got Chad, PJ, and some DEI folks there, Sherrod. The folks have been along with us on this journey. So just the team of Team Reset that's actually coming down, I'm super proud of and super happy to be working with. So you'll be able to see all those individuals as well. But I definitely wanted to give a shout out to my partner, for which if we were not together, this would not also be possible as well. So I want to say thank you to him. And thank you to you, all of you guys, for taking this journey with us.
Absolutely. Yep. I'll be there. Come out, meet the team. We've got a bunch of facilitators who are going to make this thing happen. It's going to be amazing and inspiring. And we hope you all get a chance to join us.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erika.